Welcome to the Fish House Nation podcast, and as promised in the last episode, we're going to change up the format a little bit right now. I've got my co-host with me right now. I'm going to call him the co-host with the most. It's Al Escobedo.
What's happening, Chris?
Al, welcome to the show.
Thanks, buddy. Let's talk some perch, baby.
We're going to talk some perch today. We had you on the show as a guest a few times, and excited to have you on now as a co-host. But right now we're sitting out here. It's late April, mid to late April. It's snowing outside. We're sitting in the fish house right now just to do the show, and took it out doing a little hunting with it this weekend. Now we're going to record some shows in it, but we're looking out the window and it's snowing outside. The ice has been long gone in our neck of the woods, but kind of has a feel of an ice fishing day today.
Yeah, it definitely does. The old Mother Nature took the ice away from us a little too soon this year, so a little sad there. But you know what? As everything else, life goes on, and we can just start getting ready for next year.
I was ready to break out the shorts. I had basically put all the long pants away and ready to break out the shorts for the year, but it looks like I'm going to have to wait a little bit longer.
Yeah, I would advise against that, especially, like you said, it's snowing out, and it is absolutely cold out there. I got out of my house to go start the car, and I wanted to go right back in and lay in bed. So it's supposed to be turkey season right now. We should be thinking about that, but it's just that weather just isn't right for them.
Yeah, a little cool out there, but it leads us into kind of what we're talking about today, and that's early season perch fishing. We're going to be talking about lots of topics, kind of off-season topics, but I know people don't want to just listen to off-season topics in June. They still like to talk a little fishing. So we're going to be doing kind of a little mix, some off-season topics and some fishing topics. So today we're going to be talking early season perch fishing, and really the reason that got me excited about it is I was up on Winnebagosh about a month and a half ago, and just pounded them up there. And if you've never been perch fishing on Winnie, it's pretty amazing. I mean, a lot of great fish. I mean, we caught a lot of 13, 14 inch type of perch. I mean, like walleye size perch, and it's hard to find those in a lot of places, but it got me excited about perch fishing again. It's been a long time since I've been excited about perch fishing, because it seems like when I catch them, they're all the 8 or 9 inch variety. But we were able to find some big ones up on Winnebagosh, and it was a great time. And I'm excited about getting out on the water this fall and winter to go and try to chase some of those down again. You're a guy that's done some perch fishing in this local kind of metro area as well, and yep. You're a guy that knows how to track these things down. What are you looking for when you're looking for a place to go perch fishing?
Well, I mean, the big thing is when you're talking extreme early ice, it's obviously tough to access the whole lake. So you're looking for just shoreline related structures, weed lines inside, outside, any transition of bottom content, that sort of thing. And you gotta be willing to put in a little bit of work to find the perch, because them schools are moving so much. But you can definitely find some really good perch fishing here in the metro, and then obviously, like you said, some of those big lakes across the state offer some great opportunities, as well as, you know, western states. I've been fortunate enough to go up to Superior on the Canadian side and experience Black Bay perch fishing up there, which was even a little more different. But I mean, there's a lot of great perch fishing all over around us. You just got to be willing, like I said, to get out and search for them, because them schools are moving. But once you get on them, in my opinion, there's not a fish that tastes better, and they're just a ton of fun to catch. You know, even when you get into them small ones, they put up a pretty good fight. Yeah,
and the cool thing about perch too is you usually don't have to work real hard to get them to bite.
Exactly. Yep. Like I said, the hard part is finding them, and then the catching them. As long as you can get your bait down there nice and fast, usually you can get them to eat. I mean, obviously, like any other fish, weather pressure, weather systems play a factor in that. Sunnier days, especially early in the year, that light penetration is very key, and definitely fires them up a little bit more than as opposed to the overcast or low pressure days.
So you're saying they like the high pressure day, they like the sun?
They like the sun. They really do.
Very cool. All right, one other thing that you brought up there was getting that bait down quickly. So how are you doing that? What are you using to get down into the strike zone quickly?
For the most part, I mean, like you said, they're really not a finicky fish. So You can use a large variety of different baits and lures. You're talking spoons, tungstens, pretty much anything you would use for walleyes, or even, some of the other panfish work great. The big thing is just always being ready and being quick. I usually, when I'm going specifically for perch fishing, I usually have a couple of rods set up with different baits on them. I'll have a spoon, and then I'll have a small tungsten, and I just kind of have them ready at the same time. So a lot of the time, like I said, when that school gets under you, you have to keep a bait in front of them. That's where fishing with a partner really helps out, or fishing in a group, because at least someone always has a bait down there. If you have the school underneath you and your bait's gone for too long, they're moving. So that's why I like to keep 2 rods. Sometimes I'll just catch a fish and then set that rod down, drop the next one down. Obviously, if it's a small fish or you're going to throw it back or anything like that, you take care of the fish right away and get it back in the water. But you just try and be as quick and as efficient when it comes to catching the perch as you can. I mean, them schools move through, you try and knock as many of them into your bucket as you can, and then you're back to the waiting for that school to cruise around while they make their little circle and work their way back to you. But if you can keep them interested and keep them on the food, they'll stay there for a while. But back to the lures, I mean, I really do a lot more finesse fishing for pretty much everything I fish for. I'm usually a 3 to 4 mil tungsten guy on most everything. For the perch profiles, I like the little more buggy type stuff, not so much the minnows. I know a lot of guys use minnows and have great success, but I'm more of looking for those bugs, the different kind of nymphs and stuff like that as far as plastics goes. And then just like anything else, minnow heads, your waxies or your Eurolarvas are great options for catching perch.
Yeah, we were out there again on Winnebagosh not too long ago, and we were fishing with real small buckshot spoons with minnow heads. And it's like you said, it's basically the same rig that you use for walleye fishing, just kind of the smallest size that we could get. But real ferocious eaters.
Exactly.
It didn't matter what you dropped down there. But like you said, though, the fish are moving, and they're moving around a lot. And we were actually out there with a pretty good sized group, so we had a lot of lines down in each area. And that's exactly what would happen: is you'd put the line down, you'd be banging a bunch of them, and then all of a sudden nothing. It would just go to zero after a while. And basically those fish are just always moving. And one of the things I know you like to do a lot, and it was something that we ended up, you have to do, is I'll bet you we drilled 300 holes that day. I mean, and it wasn't like we were searching and going all over the place. It was just literally just almost like a pie. We just
finding a pattern and figuring out which way they're moving. That's really the best thing to do there.
Yep. So go out there if you're planning on doing this and plan on drilling holes. If you're the guy that's got a kind of an inefficient auger, you might want to look at getting a different auger if you want to do this, because the fish do move. They're running around. They're just roaming. We were out on a mud flat, and that's something that a lot of people are doing. But like you said, in the early season, it is a little bit different. You're fishing weeds. How is it different fishing those perch and weeds than it is out on like a big mud flat like that?
It seems like when you're fishing shallower water, they tend to hold a little bit tighter the structure, and that's why I personally like to target them early in the year versus later in the year when they're really roaming those big basins, really getting filled up with bloodworms and all the other type of invertebrates that live down there. But with that weed structure, if you can find the structure or the break lines where you got a nice solid weed line with a transition to rocks, transition from rocks to gravel, transition from gravel to muck, I mean, anything where you're getting a big change along with a nice solid weed line, it's going to hold the fish there a lot longer than if they're just roaming, kind of sucking up what's on the bottom as they go. But the other good thing about perch, is they do have pretty decent eyesight, so you can call them in from a long ways away to come and check you out. So that's another thing to kind of keep in mind, is especially when you're fishing, like you said, those little spoons and stuff, that's going to give you a little bit more flash, a little bit bigger profile. They can see it, and usually they're pretty curious, and they'll come over and check it out.
How about colors? What do you like for colors when you're out doing this?
My favorite color for fishing for perch is little perch. That's what I almost always use, whether it's a spoon or a small jig. Other than that, I'm kind of a gold, maybe something with a little bit of red glow in it. But that, I mean, really for pretty much most fishing that I do, it's either gold, red glow, or a pretty standard looking or realistic looking color pattern on a spoon.
You're kind of a tackle nerd too. I know you're big into specialty rods and stuff like that. What do you like? I mean, if you're going to go out and pull something out of your arsenal for perch, what is kind of the rod that you're looking for? What are you looking for as far as strength and action when you're going perch?
When I'm going perch, it all depends on the tactic that's working for that day as to which rod I'm going to use, obviously, just like anything else. When I'm fishing, minnow heads or, the spoon, something a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier, you obviously want something a little bit stiffer. You're looking more of like your just standard power noodle type rod. You start getting into your finesse bites with your small tungstens. My personal favorite rod is the Inhaler by Elliott with the little built-in spring bobber, but you can get into some of those precision noodles and stuff like that are really key to detecting the bite. So really matching the bait to the rod that you're using. The heavier the bait, you want to use a little bit stiffer rod, but not too stiff where you can still detect the bite, whether it's feel or visual, depending on the type of fisherman you are. And then obviously when you go to them little baits, you still want to keep a little bit of weight on that rod so you can visually see the bite, and that you can also feel it as well.
How about line? What are you using for line when you're perch fishing?
I use fluorocarbon for most everything I do. Some cases I'll use mono, but I'm usually about a 2 to 4 pound test. When I'm fishing perch, I generally go to the higher, where like if I'm fishing bluegills or sunfish, I tend to, like I said, I'm a finesse guy, so I tend to stay at the low end of that just for visibility purposes. But when you're fishing perch, like you said, there's so much like a walleye. I mean, there's always a really good chance of catching walleyes, and especially when you start getting into some of the bigger perch, they fight like a walleye. So I usually jump to that 4 pound when it comes to the perch, and like I said, a fluorocarbon. I'm not real brand specific personally, but I've tried a lot of different ones. The Trilenes, the Frost lines from Clam Outdoors, and all those different lines. And I think personally for me, I just want the poundage in something that doesn't twist up real bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. I was actually going to bring that point up. The nice thing about perch fishing is you're fishing in areas where walleyes often hang out, especially in the early season when you're in those weed areas. I was talking about the Winnebagosh trip, but early in the year, I went to Minocqua, Wisconsin with my son, and we went out and did a little fishing out there, and we were, this big, huge weed flat everybody was in. We got off of it and went where it dipped down a little bit, and we were right, like you said, we were right on the edge of that weeds, and we had perch and walleye all day. And one of the cool things about that is we had our camera down too. And the visibility wasn't great, but we could see at least what was happening. And you're seeing the perch and you're seeing the walleyes come through. How about you? Are you a camera guy when you're perch fishing? Are you just a flasher guy? What are you using when you're out perch fishing for electronics?
I'm mostly a flasher guy, again, for most things that I do, unless I'm scouting or searching. But, there's always an exception to that rule. If, perfect examples, we're sitting in this beautiful wheelhouse here. Whenever I'm fishing in a wheelhouse, I like to have the camera down. Most of them, you can hook them right up to the TV and you're watching exactly what's going on down below you. It makes things a little more exciting. If I'm moving around a lot, obviously, hole hopping a lot, then the camera becomes a little more difficult. But it's always a good tool to have, because then you can physically see how the fish are reacting to your bait. You can physically see what you're dealing with. You can, when you get into some of these fishing situations, you can pull away from the little ones if you see a bigger one sitting on the screen. Obviously, with your flasher, as you kind of get a little more in tune with it, you can see a little bit of that, but the camera doesn't lie. It makes things a lot easier. I personally think, when it comes to electronics, your personal style of fishing is what becomes more important, whether it's camera or flasher. I got buddies that fish strictly camera, don't even own a flasher. And then obviously, doing the tournaments, I get to see all spectrums of what the guys are using. But me personally, I kind of switch it back and forth. If I'm going to set up the shack, if I'm out with the wife or something, and you're going to spend the afternoon not running around chasing fish, then the camera does make things a lot more exciting, when they do come through to watch it.
Yeah, you get to kind of see the action. The other cool thing about cameras, in my mind, when you're out and you're doing stuff like what we're talking about, you can see on maps where it goes from mud to gravel or gravel to rock or whatever. But being able to drop that camera down and confirm that you're in that spot is a big deal. Yep. And whether or not you want to fish with it down or not, that's your personal choice. But being able to really pinpoint where those structure transitions are is really where that camera comes in handy.
Exactly. That transitions are key, and that's not just for perch fishing. I mean, that's where a lot of them transitions are, where a lot of them bugs are coming out. There's a lot of travel corridors along those transitions, so you're right, using that camera to find those transitions. I mean, you could be, even though it's on the map, you could be 5 feet off, 10 feet off, but with that camera you can find exactly what you're looking for, and that'll usually make the difference of a great day and a good day.
Exactly. The other thing we need to talk about, we've been talking early season perch fishing, and it kind of went into kind of all season perch fishing. But when we're talking early season, we also got to talk a little bit about ice safety and not making a move that maybe you shouldn't make, and testing the things as you go.
Definitely. Early ice safety is obviously very important. It's very key. That's where spud bar, float suit, constantly checking the ice. If you are fishing bigger bodies of water, we hear it every year on the Red Lakes, the Mille Lacs, the Lake of the Woods, paying attention to wind direction if the ice isn't locked up, depending on the body of water. I mean, you just really gotta, if you're looking to venture out in early ice, you really just gotta be willing to pay attention to conditions and really be careful about what you're doing. You're not just grabbing your sled and all your fishing gear and just walking and going. You got your spud bar, you're checking the ice constantly. If you get a big wind shift, you're paying attention to shifting of the ice that you're standing on. I mean, that's really the biggest thing when you're talking perch. I mean, a lot of guys, when you start talking about perch and you start thinking about perch, a lot of people automatically gravitate towards those bigger bodies of water. Mm-hmm. And early ice, obviously, just like any other fish species, can be the best time of the year to get onto some of these fish, but it's also can be the most dangerous. So you just got to be really careful, and if you can, go with someone who knows what they're doing, who's been doing it for a long time, and if you're new to the game. But checking ice and paying attention to weather conditions is really, in my opinion, the most important thing. And then obviously the gear, like I said, you want a spud bar for checking the ice as you're walking out. Always go with someone else. I bring a rope with me all the time with a throwable float tied to it. All I do is grab one of those cushions from the boat, tie a rope to it, and keep that in my sled, in my four-wheeler, whatever, I really have that with me throughout most of the year. And then the float suits, it's a lot of guys are switching to them. It's a little bit of an investment, but what's your life worth to you? These float suits are pretty amazing. I mean, unfortunately, I've found my way through the ice a couple times, and I can tell you the float suit definitely makes it a lot easier getting back out than just a standard suit, getting all soaked and getting weighed down. But I would say you're definitely right. I mean, paying attention and being cautious is definitely a key there.
Yeah, they're becoming more and more affordable as well. So I think that cost factor is kind of going away as the price points and these companies like Eskimo have come out with, a really affordable option for people because they want to get people in them. So I think that's kind of going away. Is there anything else about perch fishing that we haven't talked about that you wanted to talk about today?
There really isn't. I mean, I guess the biggest thing I would have to say is get out there and get after them, be willing to drill holes like we said early, and have fun doing it. That's the most important part of the whole deal.
And I think if you're new, the other point you brought up earlier that I really liked is if you're new to the game, and there are a lot of new ice anglers out there, new people that are getting into the sport, try to find somebody who has been out there and has done it that you can kind of learn from. One of the things, though, that I kind of want to caution people with. So sometimes when you get caught up with somebody who has experience and has been doing it, maybe they're not doing it the right way. Maybe they're kind of old and set in their ways and maybe not doing things the most efficient way. So go out, learn from them. But if you want to try something, go and try something, and maybe go out with that person 2 or 3 times, and then say, I'm going to go by myself. I want to try to experiment and try some different things too. Because sometimes when you get caught up fishing with someone who has experience, you kind of get pigeonholed into doing things the way that they do it. So I always think it's good to go out and try doing things your own way and try to learn some of those lessons on your own as well.
Exactly. Yep, that's a great point as well.
Well, guys, thanks for listening to the Fish House Nation podcast this time. We'll be back next time with kind of an off-topic, off-season podcast coming up. Should be interesting, should be fun. We'll have some more of those as the summer goes on, because what we've decided is that, a lot of people that own these fish houses, they don't use them anymore just to fish, and there's a lot of guys going out using them for camping, hunting, all that kind of stuff. People enjoy the house for other things other than yanking up fish, even though that's the reason why we buy it, and that's the reason that we use as an excuse to buy the thing. But what we're seeing is a lot of people are using it for a lot of different ways. So we want to start bringing up some of those topics, and we'll have that next. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.